I've recently made a couple of these key rings on the CNC, and hopefully you can just see there, this is a bit sapele, and it's cut out all of this rose pattern. And I'm fairly new to the CNC, so these weren't my first attempt. My first attempt was actually this, which is where I got the toolpath wrong and it started cutting all the outside here. So I trimmed it all up and decided I'm not going to throw this away. I want to use this for some form of an insert. And if you follow me on social media, I had mentioned this, and I'm going to use this as an insert on a lidded box. On my shelf I found this rough turned piece of oak. That's the lid, and we can see on the date here, which was February 2020, so it's 2 years ago. I did weigh these. This has actually lost something like about well over 100 grams off that weight, and the lid again has lost about 60 grams, which is about a third of its weight. So they're totally dry. But the problem with these is that they've actually distorted an awful lot, and I don't know how well it shows on the camera there, but that being flat, it's twisted off that way if you keep the top and bottom parallel. So it's just leaned to one side, and that's obviously because of the nature of the grain in the wood, the way it was growing from what part of the tree you've cut. And hopefully the lid here can show you more what's happened here. I've created a jam chuck here, so it's more or less kept its centre down the central plane, and you can see that it's what it's done. Therefore it's pushed down lower on one side and higher on the other side. So what I want to do with this jam chuck, and I will do this again, modify that then to put this on as well, because I want to try and keep the insert here parallel. So then what I can do, I can then true up the ends. The important end is the tenon end on both of these. I'm not so bothered about the other end, because once I've got it mounted in the chuck, I can work on it a lot easier. But I need to then make this tenon so that it's actually flat in line with the chuck, properly sort of perpendicular to that central column that's in there. The walls are nice and thick. These are about 12-13 mil thick, so there's plenty to play with there as well. So I'm just going to use the skew, so that seems to be the easiest way to do these. Hopefully you can see there the wobble. So I'm just going to try and take this easy, off the speed a little bit. So now I have a flat area across there, and I can then just recut the tenon on the outside here. So that's the tenon for this first one, for the lid. Got a good tenon on the lid there and one on the base. This part doesn't really matter, because even if I use this chuck, it's going to fit right inside the centre of the jaws. The plan now is to just redo the inside, and I'm going to probably do a recess on there after I've trued up this edge surface. The outside I won't really touch until I then get the base done. I'll get the base done, do the same thing on here, sort the inside out, level off the top, and then that way I can then create effectively a tenon on here to then fit the lid on a nice snug fit, and then I can work on the whole outside all in one go. There's no right or wrong way of doing boxes. It's just a case that what I find is that I'd rather get the inside of the lid done first of all, then you can fit it on the base. Once you've got the base sorted that way, this stays on the chuck and you don't have to then rechuck this up. So then obviously we're fitting on the top here, you can then finish everything off on the outside all in one go. That's the recess done, so I'm now going to get this sanded up, get some sanding seal on there and properly wood wax 22. The lid has been sanded up, sanding sealer, and then I used the cut and polish from Chestnut Products on it, and then it's had a couple of coats of wood wax 22, so that's come up really nicely on there. Really is a nice finish. So I've now got the base in the lathe, and I'm going to first of all see how much this has gone out of round, because I'm just going to use the side scraper on there first of all, and hopefully it's not too much on there. And probably for the base, I do have this box scraper from Ashley Isles to try and get that level up as well. Once I've got that, I can then take this top down, get the lip, effectively the tenon on there, to then fit the lid on there as a nice snug fit. Got a reasonably tight fit on there now, so I can now go ahead and just sand up and get the inside finished off. This has now been sanded and all the same finishes as on the inside of the lid. Now it does fit on there nicely, but the problem is that if you get too much friction on here, when I turn this down, it's going to start slipping and it will become a lot looser. So first thing I'm going to do is just true up the base here to roughly about the size I want, and then put the lid on so that I can then finish off all the lid. So I've got the diameter down there to roughly about where I want it. Now I don't want to take this down too thin, because you've got to think the thickness of this bit here is going to be the thickness of the wall on the outside here. And I can now bring up the lid and then bring up the tailstock. I've just modified the insert here a little bit because on these original ones you'd actually got part of this leaf pattern which was coming out of the edge. So I've just sanded that one back, so this is now totally round and it will sit in there and it will just sit proud like that. Now, because of all the texture on this, there's no way I can give that a wax finish. So I'm going to give it some more sanding sealer. I'm going to give that a spray lacquer on there just to finish that off. And then once that's all ready, I can then just glue that actually in place. So I'm going to sand this off now and get the finish and everything on this ready for when this goes in. So the box has now had the same finish all the way through. So it's been sanded back to 400, sanding sealer, cut and polish, couple of coats of wood wax 22, and I've got to say that has come up really nicely. This wood is really dry and brittle, so you get a little bit of flake out on some of these edges. Fortunately that doesn't show up too much now after the sanding and everything, but it was quite bad. So really pleased the way that's come out, and the grain does line up reasonably. So the top is all ready to put the actual insert in, and I have just sanded off the bottom on there. Now the insert, I've given a couple of coats of spray lacquer on there, and it's a little bit soft at the minute, so I'm going to leave that for probably, might even leave that overnight before I then actually glue that in there, because I just want to make sure it's got a little bit of pressure on it so it does fully go in and stay in place. I've now glued the insert in the lid there, and that sits there nice and tight, and fortunately I also had enough clearance on my CNC machine to put the body of this to just laser engrave my logo in the bottom there. Really pleased with the outcome on this. So it's a good example of where I had a project on the CNC which went wrong, and I've managed to modify that and repurpose into something else. Thanks a lot for watching.